Hello, welcome again to another episode of our Informers. Today, well, it would be evening, afternoon, wherever you are in this world when you're watching this or listening to this. We will be talking about intermittent fasting. And we have a good friend of ours who's able to grace us with some information. That would be Dr. Josephine Grace Rojo from the Philippines. She also written some books, 3 episode books, and you can find her in Facebook to talk about more in depth with fasting. It's not just intermittent fasting. So here it is. I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Josephine Grace Rojo.
Hello,
Welcome, Doc.
hello, hello, sir. Thank you so much for making me your guest for tonight or today. There, I feel so honored to be here, and I am. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Josephine Grace Chuaraha. You can call me Grace for short. You can find me in Facebook at the same time in YouTube, and soon to launch our website, Wellness by Grace MD. So this is our topic, intermittent fasting. And since you know, I've written some books. Basically, I promote natural wellness, although my subspecialty in medicine is about ENT, the diseases of ears, nose, and throat. At the same time, head and neck surgery. So we do surgeries for face, including cleft lip, facial plastics, tumors of head and neck, ears, throat, anything above the shoulders except the brain and the spine and the eyes. So all those it's our specialty. But my heart, since it's in medicine, aside from my specialty, is about natural wellness, natural healing. And I think it is very timely that we discuss this intermittent fasting.
Yes, it's very comprehensive background you've got there, Doc. Anyway, I'm so happy that you also gave us the opportunity, to be here with us to talk about this one. Okay, I'm gonna start shooting the bullets at you,
Yes.
Doctor. I'll just call you. Can I call you Doctor Grace?
Dr. Race would be okay.
Doc Grace. Okay, Doc Grace. Yeah. All right. Okay. The big question is, what is intermittent fasting? Because people are so confused about the word fasting, and then how do I do it? Because there are
Yes.
I know there are different types of it. So what? So we'll just go first to the definition of what is
Okay.
intermittent fasting.
So intermittent fasting is just basically fasting that is not eating or taking in anything with caloric content. So no food, no drinks with sugar or anything that can spike insulin or has insulin response, including zero calorie drinks, because its sweet taste can still promote insulin response. So doing abstinence at all from fluids and foods except water. So that is intermittent fasting, and you do it daily. So there are different schedules. Fasting would be qualified as fasting if it's done at least 12 hours, because the benefit that we are trying to get here is the ketosis or the fat burning process that usually starts after 12 hours. So after 12 hours of not eating, you are starting to convert those fats into energy. So before that, you are most of us solely, especially coming from diet that is traditional, the what's so called balanced diet, but
Yeah.
actually it is a high carbohydrate diet, you will be fueling in glucose. But starting 12 hours, you can already start burning some fat so that you are no longer just reliant on the glucose, but also on the ketones. That is the energy coming or converted from fats. So intermittent fasting is doing a intentional. It is important to know that it is deliberate. It is a conscious decision because it will set apart between fasting and starvation. Starvation is you are not in control. You are not taking anything, you're not eating, you're not drinking, but you are not in control. You are merely starving yourself, basically by circumstance or whatnot. But fasting, it is a conscious and deliberate effort. And that is important because it has a very, very much impact on the psychological side of the person. with starvation, that's when they say that hunger can make you crazy. But with
Yeah.
fasting, it is actually even more empowering and at the same time known to have boost confidence of people knowing that you are in control. So when you ask how to start it, the easiest way is just do it as an overnight fast because actually we do it naturally every day. It's
Yes.
just that we sometimes eat very late and also eat very early in the
Really.
morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So intermittent fasting, for you to get to ease into it, you just start with the very basic. That is either making your dinner as early as possible and making your breakfast as late as possible. So, for very beginners, for those who are listening to us for the first time hearing intermittent fasting, so you can start with 12-12. So, we usually say the schedule in 2 hours divided in 24 hours because the first one would be your fasting window or the time that you are not eating, and the second one would be your eating window, the time that you will be eating. So 12-12 would be 12 hours of not eating, of fasting, and another 12 hours of eating window. Of course, you won't be eating the whole 12 hours, but at least you can break down your meals between that
Within the
12
12 hours.
hours. So maybe you have dinner at 7, and then the earliest that you can have breakfast, first
Yeah.
intake, caloric
Yeah.
containing intake would be 7 also. And then you can just move up little by little. So usually we have 12-12, 14-10. We also have 16-8. I think 16-8 is the most
That's
common,
common.
and
Yes.
then we can have 18-6, and the OMAD or one meal a day. That is
Yeah.
already considered as one meal a day when you have an eating window of 5 hours or less. So 19 hours and 5 hours. So some may wonder how come it's OMAD or one meal when it's 5 hours. So we usually other authors will define it differently, but for most authors like myself, I would agree that 19.5 is already considered as OMAD or one
Okay.
meal a day if you eat one regular meal and a light meal before or after. That is in a span of 4 hours or less in a day. So
So
that
that's
is
also
intermittent
OMAD.
fasting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's great. So basically, Doc, those that there was a diet that was going for a while ago, and they said, "Oh, I do 6 and 6." Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
six
Uh,
six diet. So that's already like an introduction to intermittent fasting, basically for
yes,
12 hours
yes.
window. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Something good about 6 or before 6 and 6 or after 6. They
Yes.
also call it as after
Yeah,
6.
after
That
six.
is,
Yeah.
you no longer eat anything after 6.
Mhm.
And actually, for me, that is really something that we can learn from because as what we've experienced, overnight fast is one of the easiest and something that is beneficial because if you take in food before your bedtime, it can have so much effect. It can lead to GERD, it can lead to some certain kind of reflux, and the overall content of your what you took in will not be as natural. But when you eat before 6 o'clock, you still have ample time to burn those, and so that by the time you lie down, there would be no risk for reflux. So one of my concern is also GERD or reflux because that is also part of my specialty, being a ENT, ears, nose, and throat. GERD and laryngopharyngeal reflux disease are one of the most common cause of consults that we see, and before, I used to give a lot of medicine for it. But right now, I can just recommend actually just
Just
do
that.
intermittent fasting. And at the same time, you incorporate a low carbohydrate lifestyle that is diluted of simple sugars and processed foods. You can give it 2 weeks instead of trial of 2 weeks medicine. You can have a
Okay.
trial
Yeah.
of lifestyle
Yes.
change in
Yes.
2 weeks
That's a
for yourself.
very good approach. Yeah. I like
Yes.
that. Because there's when we talk about intermittent fasting, people are so scared because they'll fall into that in the how do I say this I- in the gym world. They don't want to
Mm.
go into the Oh, I'll go
because
into
they
the
are afraid
starvation
of
mode.
muscle loss.
Yes.
Something like
Yeah.
because they say it will activate starvation
Yeah,
mode, and
starvation
then
mode.
it can lead to muscle loss because you will no longer be burning, not because you will no longer have stores. And for those who they think no longer have fats, no,
Yeah.
because I think intermittent fasting was just became popular for weight loss, and a lot of, yes, gym goers are afraid because they don't want to waste their muscles because they tried hard to bulk up
Yeah.
their muscles and then risking wasting it away because of intermittent fasting. But when you do intermittent fasting together with low carbohydrate lifestyle, and at the same time continue your workout, especially weightlifting, endurance training, all those, it can actually promote more muscles. Because what the title of the first book that I wrote, it's Perfect at Last Weight, it has a subtitle that says An Evolutionary Perspectives Guide in Attaining an Ideal Body Weight, the Fastest Natural Way. So the emphasis there is about the evolutionary perspective. Why do we talk about all the time about evolution whenever we talk about fasting? It is simply because humans, in general, we have evolved for the last 2 million years going into intermittent and even extended fasting as a part of the natural cycle of life.
Yes.
In before, yes, as hunters and gatherers, we thrived for 2 million years. As hunters and gatherers, that is actually not having any stored foods available, no packed cereals, no refrigerator to preserve the foods. So basically, we can eat in a day if we have a successful hunt. And you
Mhm.
cannot hunt early in the morning, and you cannot also hunt late at night because it would be dangerous. So if we can presume, they maybe on a good day they can eat as early as 12 o'clock at
Yeah.
noontime, and they have to walk 4 miles, and usually they eat a lot during that time, and then everything they consume it because they don't have any way for food preservation, or else it will just get spoiled. So that is why we recommend, and the after six, that actually makes sense because before they have to seek for security, they
Yeah.
have to seek shelter. So during nighttime, it would be dark, it would be scary. So after that, they don't eat anything anymore. So that is why we emphasize on evolution. And why is it that we mention it when it comes to fat loss and muscle loss? Because our body has evolved in such a way that it will not waste the muscle. The
Yeah.
fats and the glucose will always preserve the muscle. Or else, if our muscles are wasted, we could have died. We shouldn't have thrived because our muscles is needed to hunt, to look for food, to fight or flight, or whatever challenges our ancestors used to have. So we actually preserve muscle. So if we study the biochemistry of fasting, there is only a very, very short time that your glucose, once depleted, will be coming from amino acids or the basic component or basic unit of proteins, which is mostly muscles. But
Yes.
that is actually a very wrong misconception because our muscles is not the sole source
Of energy. Yeah.
of energy to be
Mhm.
converted into glucose. We also have triglycerides. We know triglycerides as
Yeah.
lipids, right? But
Mm.
triglycerides is actually just three molecules of lipids tied up to a molecule of glycerol. And we can break that down. We can break
Yeah.
that down, get the glycerol, and convert it into glucose when we need
Mm.
it. And
Yeah.
then, even aside from that, we have glycogen stores in our liver.
Mhm.
Each person, especially with a normal diet, not really full keto, even just low carb diet, will have some glycogen reserves. So glycogen reserves is simply just a storage form of glucose that is found in our liver and can be as much as 2,000 kilocalories. So that is more than a day for small physique, small built people, and that is enough for a 70-kilogram man.
Yeah.
So our fats and our glucose and all that are actually muscle sparing. And when they do weightlifting, all the exercise that they need, they will activate their muscles even, and they shouldn't be afraid because muscles has the capacity to adapt. They are not just rigid and only dependent on glucose, but research found out that they can also fed or can also function even cleaner and even better with ketones as a source of energy. So muscle wasting is something that gym goers, especially those that are
Into
very
bodybuilding.
concerned with
Yeah.
their biceps and all their abs,
Yeah.
it won't go to waste.
Yes. When you said about the lipids, and then you broke it down, they are like triglycerides. The word itself, glyceride, that's also coming from
Glucose.
glucose. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
so,
Because all of this are because glucose once depleted, will our body can make its own. So that is important because we were raised in a culture saying that we need sugar all the time to have
yeah.
energy. When that is one of the biggest lie there is, because our body can actually just regulate and create its own glucose through the process of gluconeogenesis. So
Mhm.
gluconeogenesis by its name, glucose neogenesis is just making from
Making
scratch,
its own. Yeah. Making
making
its
it
own.
from scratch. So you can have various sources. We thought it's just coming from muscles, but no, amino acids is just one of those. But it can also be from other sources like glycerol from triglycerides, and
Yeah.
even what we know now regarding autophagy, if you've heard about it.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah.
So that is the self cleansing mechanism of
Mhm.
our body. Whenever you're fasting, it will eat up those defective parts of
Making
cells or
sense. Yeah.
even cells that are no longer
Mhm.
functional. It will eat that up and will make use, and most of that are made of proteins, what we call as misfolded proteins in biochemistry. So they will use that up, break it down into amino acids, and then convert it into glucose as well.
Wow. See, there's a lot of misconception when it comes to that one. Because I did when I'm doing intermittent fasting myself,
Mm.
and then as what you said, you have to start from 12-12, which I did, and then eventually, just increase it 12, 13, 14, 16, and then I was able to extend it to I was doing OMAD like 24. And then
Mm.
I was talking to a friend of mine. Shout out to attorney Norjay Dural, who introduced me to Dr. Rojo. Anyway, I talked to him about how long. He asked me how long did I fast, total fasting abstinence. I told him I managed to do like 90 hours, I think. On
Mm.
Yeah, that was during Lent. During
Okay, so about 4 days.
Yes,
So
yes, yes,
you practice it basically when it is one of the most normal or accepted time of the
yes,
year, especially
yes,
for Christians or Catholics
yes, yes.
during Lent season.
Land season. So I tried to do it that way. So I told him, you really have to have a very good mindset, but it's your goal, it's your purpose. So I thought that time was the best time for me to do it, but I don't
Mm,
think it's a long term uh,
mm,
approach to fasting. So I can do it maybe once in a while. But
yes,
so I told him I'm quite happy doing 16-8 or OMAD once in a while.
yes.
Yes, because I feel like the type of activity that I do, I, I I do a lot of physical activity like high intensity workouts, cycling, weightlifting. I, s- I, s- I feel like I still need to get some calories
Okay.
when I work out. So yeah, it's fascinating when people are so scared to try intermittent fasting because
Yes.
their muscles will break down.
Mm,
Then they think they will not have enough energy source. And
mm.
I do most of my workout fasted as well.
Yes, and I know a lot who really feel great and they work out way better when it's in a fasted state. It's just get needs a lot of getting used to, but most importantly for those who have not experienced well with working out fasted state, it's basically lacking electrolytes. They just lack electrolytes.
Just
But other than that, yes, the cramping, the pain, the weakness, it's all just electrolytes, but it's not
yeah,
glucose. It's not glucose because you still have a lot of stores. You will only worry for someone who might be malnourished to go to it if you are
Yeah.
looking at physically as stick and bones. But for majority of the public, we have a lot of energy stores that more than we admit
Yeah.
actually.
So if you're just worried about cramping, that would be just your sodium,
Yes.
maybe tiredness, maybe magnesium.
Magnesium, yes.
Yeah. So
And at most, if you've been low in sodium for so long because you follow the typical advice of going into low salt
low
diet,
salt
that
diet.
is
Yes.
actually that we do not believe at all. You will also risking yourself of having potassium deficit, so
Yeah.
hypokalemia. So not just that.
So now, if you get hypokalemia, that's your potassium, which is responsible for your muscle contraction. Then you'll get tired
Mm,
easily, and
mm.
then cramping
Yes,
as well comes in because of
yes.
potassium.
Yes.
There's no
Because our
contraction.
muscles is about electrical gradient and electrical energy, and these electrolytes will produce that electrochemical gradient for that muscle contraction to occur. So if there is deficient or too much, no balance between the intracellular and out and
That's what
extracellular,
I do.
that can lead to cramping. So it's an erroneous muscle contraction that can be very, very severely painful.
Yeah, so that's very nice. Yeah, uh, electrolyte plays a big role in your muscle contraction.
Yes.
People are so focused on the glucose side instead of
Yes. Yes.
electrolyte. Yeah.
That's why it's part of the book. I would like to talk about what you mentioned a while ago that when you did a almost 4 days fast. So
Yeah.
that's 90 hours of fasting. That is already what we call as extended fasting. So that is, but as long as it's more than 24 hours, that is already extended fasting. Some do it alternate day fasting, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a couple of months, or maybe once a year to maximize the autophagy benefits. But yes, mindset is the most important thing. I even said that fasting is actually just 95% psychological. It's just mental preparedness, and those are the things that I discuss in the book. I discuss it the biochemical side so that the person will be empowered not to worry that he will be all right doing all this. And yes, as per electrolytes, it's very important because essentially we do not need glucose, but essentially we need electrolytes. So there
Electrolytes.
is no such thing as I cannot live without taking in any sugar.
Sugar.
But
Yeah.
certainly we cannot live without salt. So most cravings actually, most signs of hypoglycemia, the things that we thought are really hypoglycemia, most of the time we just need salt. We
Yeah.
just need salt.
Mm.
And we do that. That's one of the tricks that I usually recommend for those who are starting and then they feel unwell, they feel what we call as keto flu, and sometimes for those who feel weak. So before giving into food, before taking a bite of that cake or ice cream, just try to take a pinch of salt, put it in your mouth, drink it, give it 5 to 10 minutes, and you will see it gone like real magic.
Yeah.
For some, they might not believe it, but the moment they try it, they can see it easily that it's salt that we need more, and sugar is something that we really don't need to take in. It's just pleasure, but empty calorie pleasure.
Yes. It's basically like garbage calorie. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
When you're talking about say ash salt, that's
yes,
uh in the hospital. I mean, we're both in the medical field. That's why you see a lot. We always start our drip with a normal saline.
yes,
NaCl.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
NaCl. Started with normal saline. Normal saline.
yes,
Here where I work, we hardly start. We hardly infuse D5LR dextrose. We infuse
yes.
normal saline. Yeah.
Hmm.
When you think about it, that's just salt water.
Very much. And as again, going back to evolution, we, even if it's biblical side or scientific side, we came from a single cell organism. By nature, we came from a single cell organism that actually thrived from seawater. That is the reason why our blood, the most abundant electrolyte in our system is sodium chloride. That is saline and saline, NSS. normal saline. That's what we call it. And whenever you are dehydrated, what they recommend, it's not folklore or it's not tradition. It's mainly a passed on generation to generation that you just take the salt water and you will be all right. And that
Yeah.
is something just because it's been practiced by non-medical fields, by our grandmas, by our all those our ancestors. We thought that it's already an alternative medicine simply because we have modern medicine. But actually, if we are open enough, we are open-minded enough, we can see that those remedies work simply because they really have a biological basis. We just need to be more open to it. And if you want, we can check the science behind it. And surely it's there. And when I talk about science, it's not about just the research, what the researchers produce, what the research outcomes are, but science as in basic biochemical structures within our body, what goes on inside. And you no longer need all these clinical trials actually to prove it because it is becoming common sense. It is just common sense. You cannot, for those who are like afraid to do fasting, our body is so used to it that we are having all these diseases because we are eating too much. Our body has been used to fasting and low intake of food for 2 million years, that the last 10,000 years of human existence is full of food that is now causing the illness that doesn't exist way before.
Yeah.
These illnesses are what we consider before as the illnesses of the royalty, of the monarchy, or the kings and queens of each
Yes.
tribe, because those people are the ones who are having all the
Feeding.
abundant food.
They can
Yes,
feed.
they have all, but
Yeah.
all the rank and file, all the commoners, all that are struggling to have their food intake actually do not have all these diseases. I'm talking about obesity,
Yeah.
diabetes, hypertension. You cannot find a commoner skeleton with signs of all these. There's no such thing, but only on the those who are on the higher ups, the ones leading the pack, leading the tribe, because they are having too much food. And the tragedy now is, no matter how poor you are, but the moment you are eating a lot of carbs or you are eating just a biscuit, but you are eating it 3 times a day, 4 times a day, your body is telling you it feels like it is the richest person in the world. That's why it is still storing up fats. This is the reason why some are are wondering, because even if they are eating less, they are eating too little, especially that small frequent meals.
Yeah.
Those who are following that, but of small frequent meals in a span of 14, 16 hours in a day, as early as 6 a.m., and closing it with a glass of milk at midnight before going to bed. So actually, that is just making sure that all those fats that you store will never get burned, and whatever extra you eat will be stored as fats as well.
Yeah. That's very good explanation there. When talking about uh when you start 6 o'clock, don't eat after 6. What's for me, for example, I'm a shift worker.
Mm,
People are wondering, how do I do my fast? Because I'm not like
yes,
those people who go
daytime
to
jobs.
bed go to bed at 9 o'clock and wake up at this time. For me, it's quite different when I do my fasting. I I do it on my days off. So I'm mainly doing if I'm working 3 nights straight. So I won't on those 3 nights that I'm working, I try to do just a low carb diet.
Mm,
And then when I'm not working, so that's when I stick to my 16 to my
schedule. Mm,
schedule. But again, I saw the way you did it as well. Another good way was you did like an alternate day fast.
yes.
Yeah. So
So we
that
do a lot. So what is good about intermittent fasting is actually it is very, very flexible. It can adapt to any schedule, working schedule, lifestyle schedule, even simple preference. Or for those night owls, for those who work best at night and the early birds, it can be flexible. And if you are working that way and for you it's working with that kind of schedule, like doing a low carb, but I'm sure you the moment you are into intermittent fasting, it's just so hard to eat more.
It
more
is.
than your what your usual schedule is. So even if I think you are not really sticking to your 16 hours, but I'm sure somewhat you are still sticking to a certain amount of fasting period
Yeah.
still on a
Yeah.
day-to-day
Yeah.
basis. Yes, and that is
I
good.
do a minimum of, sorry, I do at least a minimum of 12 hours.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And with actually with working out, with physical activity, you can have more leeway because you can just burn it off eventually. But for those who are not yet maintaining, for those who still want to lose a little more weight or who wants to improve their health, like for example, I have a lot of relatives who are not fat, who do not need to lose weight, but they wanted to normalize their blood lipids, their blood cholesterols, and at the same time their blood pressures. So they do. I still recommend intermittent fasting with them, and just the extra inches that they remove, it's just a bonus. But
That's a bonus. Yeah.
fasting, yes, but fasting itself, it can heal, and you can make your own schedule, whatever will work for you. So for me, regardless of my schedule, I usually have a daily routine, minimum of 19 hours in a day. If I'm not doing an alternate day fast, that is what we're doing right now. Alternate day fast is another kind of fasting that you eat one day and you don't eat the next and then eat
Mhm.
another. So in a span of a week, we fast for at least 3 days, and then 4 days of that we
You
eat
see.
as much as we want, ad libitum, whatever you want. So, but of course, better to stick with low carb so that you will maximize whatever benefits you get from fasting. So it can be like yours, like you adjust according to your work schedule. But for me, I can also, depending on my work schedule, I stick with my intermittent fasting schedule simply because I actually rejoice or somewhat celebrate the time that I do extended fasting more than my schedule because
Yeah.
I am busy. Because if you are really busy, for those who are starting, how do they get past their usual meal time? Like, for example, breakfast. I just tell them you either be busy, very, very much busy, that you take your mind off it, or you sleep on it. That's
Yeah.
the easiest way. So, but when you are not doing anything, you are idle,
That's
most
so
likely
hard.
yes, you will eat. You will eat because of boredom, because of
Yes.
routine. And I think that is just the most tragic reason to eat. Because right now, when you're intermittent fasting, you will get to enjoy eating times. You will tend to appreciate food more, knowing that it is something like a reward each and every day. That after a long day of work, after that fasting, after that exercise, after that self control that you did,
Yes.
you will savor that food as a reward and not just a routine thing that you do in a day without any sort of mindfulness or appreciation to it.
This is very hard for those people who wants to start intermittent fasting. Now, in these pandemic times, they're at home
Yes.
playing with their thumbs. Like, oh, and then they're just looking at the time. Am I gonna eat?
Yes.
Am I gonna eat now? Am I gonna eat now? So as what he said, you try to make yourself busy
Mm.
or exercise, read a
Yes.
book, sleep on it.
Yes. So we have a group in Facebook. It's a support group for those who are fasting. It's called Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community. At the same time, another group for food inspirations, which is basically low carb, devoid of sugars. It's called Life Without Rice because, as Asians, it's
Yes.
like life without rice is no life at all. But
Mhm.
actually, we are now an increasing number by the thousands, and we are appreciating life more without rice, and rice being a representative of sugar, all those high glycemic index foods that can spike up insulin, that can raise our blood glucose, and can later on affect so many other and organ that can damage it, can lead to diabetes and all those. But I think that is another topic for that.
Yeah.
But with intermittent fasting, you can go with low carb feasting and fasting community. And in there, we discuss how we can actually get past our usual window of eating because it's actually when you don't eat, for example, I commend you for doing that 90-hour fast because the
Oh, thank you.
moment you're able to do an extended fast, missing a meal or 2 meals will no longer matter because you know for yourself you have survived 3 days,
Yeah.
4 days of fasting, and missing before it can ruin our day. It can, like, if we
I
are
know.
still traveling, when there is a delayed flight and you miss a certain meal, it can really ruin your day. But when you were able to skip 3 days, 2 days of meals, 1 or 2 meals, or even a day will no
Yeah.
longer matter because
It
you know
doesn't
you can
matter.
survive. So I
Yeah.
think that is really important. But for those who are new to it, they will think that you will be starving, feeling hungry the whole day. But actually, no. There is a hormone, what we call ghrelin, GHRELIN.
Yes.
So that is the hunger hormone,
Mhm.
and it will only spike up during your usual meal times, the one
Yeah.
that you were used to. So if you are a 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock
That's when it
eater,
goes up.
so
Yeah.
that's the only time that it actually goes up. And
Yeah.
after 30 minutes or so, if you won't listen to it, if you won't just mind it, it will die down. And as you go on the fast the next day, for example, like what you did, you will see that the ghrelin spike, the spike in hunger, is actually not worse, but starting to die off a
Yes.
little. You
Yeah.
will
Starting
still
to
feel
dilute.
that. Yes, you will still feel it, but it's not as, like,
Yeah.
you will think it's as extreme as possible, because people who have not fasted, I think they are the ones that are very close minded when it comes to fasting, simply because they haven't tried it. And the nearest thing that they can remember was that one time that they missed a meal and that they felt that
Yeah. They're so
they're
hungry.
dying, that they're
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
But actually, that is just the first missed meals. That is just the hardest. But once you get past it, give it 30 minutes or so, when we think we are afraid na the hunger pangs is no longer there, actually
Yeah.
we celebrate that because your body was able to accept that it's time to tap in those energy store that we have, the fats, the glycogen in our liver. That is an opportunity for our body to scavenge on those extras that we've been
Yeah.
piling on for years. So that is really good. So as to how can you move past your usual meal time, especially for those who are starting. What you mentioned are really good suggestions that are agreed upon by many. You read a book, you exercise, you keep busy, you can even sleep on it if you are not working, or just before you start, you make a plan on what project will you do to keep yourself productive and at the same time busy, because surprisingly, not known to all, fasting can actually make you become more focused, have clearer head, and your productivity increases way more than your eating days. Because when you are eating, imagine thinking of what to eat, preparing what to eat, and eating it, and then washing the dishes or whatever. So that's a lot of opportunities that you can maximize on a more productive things that you can do.
That's nice. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Look, another misconception as well, because I myself, before I started fasting, as a health worker, you don't eat at the right time.
Yes.
You end up skipping meal when I was
Yes.
in college, and then that's when they say, "Oh, I think I got ulcer." You're like, "Oh, yeah, that's because I've been skipping meal and all this and all that." So when I started, I was so scared because, oh, what will happen?
The
Because
hyperacidity.
I got my hyperacidity. But honestly, when I started it, it never really kicked in. So I was wondering, so
Yes.
was it hyperacidity or what was it? So
Yeah.
yeah,
So actually, that is a very good point that you've raised, because for those who are afraid, a lot, if not all, intermittent fasters that had gastritis, hyperacidity, and used to have ER trips because of acute attacks actually
mm,
healed their condition with intermittent fasting. So it may come as a surprise, really, because we thought that skipping meals will lead to ulcer.
yeah,
But it is simply because we did it before, not truly fasting, but with something like you take a candy, or you drink a coffee, or you drink just a bite, you took a little bite.
yeah,
That little bite is the one that will trigger that acid release. But with no intake at all, just plain water, or coffee without sugar,
Mhm.
your body will not produce acid because the primary trigger of acid secretion is food. Without
Yeah.
food, there's no acid secretion. That's why, and our stomach lining is one of the most resilient part of our body that it will heal without scarring. So even if you have ulcer there, as long as keep you don't keep on insulting it, you don't
Yeah.
keep on putting triggers that can raise
Acid,
gastric
yeah.
acid secretion, it can heal itself. So you just give it an opportunity to heal. And fasting is actually that best opportunity to heal. It can heal itself only if you stop eating the triggers that will cause it. And above all other foods, the worst trigger is actually sugar. Because
Right.
aside from
Yeah.
triggering acid secretion, it also causes inflammation that can disrupt the normal protective lining of the stomach. There is a reason why some people get stomachache after taking something acidic, like an apple
Mm.
cider vinegar, which is very
Yeah.
common among pastors. But there are those even if they take it, they don't have any manifestations simply because their stomach lining is intact.
Yeah.
It's intact because there's no inflammation going on. And inflammation is brought about by poor food choices, that is highly processed foods, the usual hydrolyzed oils, the vegetable oils, seed oils, all the sugary foods, even to a certain extent, too much fruits, because fruits are also loaded with fructose.
Yes.
And for others who have a lot of inflammation, they are in the vicious cycle because whenever they feel aches and pains, they take a lot of analgesics, so pain relievers. Pain relievers are primary drivers of causing the jeopardizing the protective lining of the stomach, and it can even lead to kidney problems. So those are some things that we can improve on. And even if you are fasting, actually you will no longer need to take all those pain relievers, because you will see yourself just healing, just not by doing nothing, as what
Mhm.
Hippocrates said. So he's the father of medicine.
Yeah.
Sleep and fast. That's all you need. There is a reason why whenever you feel ill, whenever you feel sick, you don't have an appetite, because that is your body telling you to take a rest from physical rest, and at the same time let your gastrointestinal system rest so that it
Exactly.
can focus more on healing wherever the problem is, and not focus on digesting, because digestion itself is very, very taxing, is very, very tiring for our body.
Yeah, it's nice. So, Doc, that's when you talk about hyperacidity and all that, so that's a very good thing. Would it be because of your body so used to eating at a certain time, and then it's already anticipating that, oh, PJ is going to eat a big
Yes,
meal.
yes.
I'm going to release the amount of acid he needs to
Gastrin,
burn
yes,
to burn
uh,
it. Was that because
yes.
of that routine?
Yes, partly it's still because of ghrelin. So that
Yeah.
ghrelin hormone is that hunger pangs hormone, and part of that is actually secretion. But
Yeah.
as long as you don't give in, that secretion will not be sustained. It will just stop. So before, it is understandable, especially for those who've had really severe acute attacks, because the
Yeah.
moment they feel some hunger pangs, they already panic. They thought they will go into that severe state again. But actually, it is just mindset. If they will move past 15 minutes, 30 minutes after that, that hunger pangs, that secretion will not be sustained, because our body is too intelligent to know that if there's no food coming in, it will be a waste of gastric acid
Yeah.
without needing to burn anything. So that it's really not necessary. It's really just a mindset.
Yes, that's very nice. Yeah, that's a very what I call that, a light bulb moment for those people who are uh, wanting to get into fasting, and then having those symptoms. Because I have a friend as well. Bubo is also a member of the Informers. He also suffers from hyperacidity. I
Yes.
introduced it to him when he start. So when he did it, he said he was so scared that it might trigger his hyperacidity.
Mm.
I was telling my friends as well, when sometimes maybe it's just thirst, so have a
Yes.
drink of water, you know,
Mm.
You're like,
Mm.
oh, I think I'm hungry. So I told him, just have a glass of water and see how you feel. And then
Yes.
if
We
you're just
actually have that like a step up. So it's good that you mentioned that whenever you, because our brain cannot detect between hunger and thirst. So that's really good. Whenever you feel that, you can take in some water. And then if give it 5 minutes, if it doesn't cure it,
yeah,
that's the time you take salt. Because
yeah,
after water, what you actually need, what we usually lack, is just salt.
just
Take
a
in
salt.
salt and then drink water to it, and then you will see it gone. And then
Got
if ever it's not gone yet, with all the mental preparation that you have now, maybe that's really the time you have to eat. But it
it.
doesn't need to be sugary foods.
Yes. Yeah. Now I'm gonna move past a bit now. How do I break my fast?
Okay.
Okay.
So breaking a fast is really,
Yeah.
really important. It is said that it is even more important than what you do during a fast, because during a fast, practically you don't do anything. So that's just it. But breaking a fast, it has to be something systematic. It has to be something that is planned, or else you might risk jeopardizing the benefits that you got from fasting. Or worse, you can even faint or syncope or have a loss of consciousness if you eat the wrong foods after a fast. Now, if it's the first time that you do intermittent fasting, you just ease in a little 12 hours up to 16 hours. Actually, there's not much preparation needed because our body is still fully adapted, especially for those that are not yet fat adapted. So they can just practically eat anything, but we're the usual. Because even if you're vegan, paleo, Mediterranean, or whatever diet you want, they all have something in common. They do not promote simple sugars and high glycemic index foods. So as much as possible, if you eat, you can start with something that is protein rich, or something, if you want vegetables, at least those vegetables that are loaded with nutrients but not with calories. So maybe some cucumbers, some green leafy vegetables, all those. But breaking a fast is more important to be done systemically if it's prolonged. If it's more than 3 days. If it's or first timers who did extended fasting of more than 24 hours or
Okay.
48 hours. Dr. Mindy Pels, she is also one of the most famous world renowned fasters. I think she has a fasting community, fasting center in America. And that is where she developed a 4-step program for breaking a fast. But this is basically for extended fasting. But if you do this during intermittent fasting, if your schedule and resources can accommodate such, it is even better. So you start with bone broth or vegetable broth or meat broth, because after fasting, your body has been so calm, it will nourish your gastrointestinal lining. So it will put on some nutrients with that. So bone broth is the best. There are slimes of healthy fats there. It can cover that. And after a while, you give it a few minutes, you can start with something with probiotics. So you can have kimchi, you have sauerkraut, you can also have plain yogurts or any other kombucha. If you have kombucha,
Oh,
all
I
those,
heard about yeah.
uh, yes, drinks that have a lot of probiotics to replenish our gut biome. Because after fasting, they die because they are not fed. And it's good to replenish them, especially with prolonged fasting. And after a while, you give it a few minutes. You can take something light but nutrient dense, yet not really calorie loaded, or not really something that can make your gut system digest, but just making it process a little. So maybe some vegetables, some steamed vegetables, you can do that. And after a while, your you can close the breaking a fast by some lean proteins. So an egg is okay, or chicken breast,
Mhm.
or those. So you can eat that. And after doing this, you can then proceed with your proper meal. So, but most of the time, if you take time in between this, you will find yourself not
You
really
don't, you don't want
needing
to eat
anything
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's
So
no
that's
food.
why
Yeah.
you have to plan. So what I do usually, if I really have, usually I break my fast for a reason, like for a feast, for a gathering, or a celebration. So I still do the 4 steps, but in very small amounts.
Yeah.
very small quantity. Okay, very small quantity and with enough time intervals so that it can, the moment I move to my first meal, I will be able to enjoy it. Because if you don't follow these steps, you still live. You'll still live. But you might have gastric upset. The moment you take in everything you eat will just go out. You will be find yourself rushing to the bathroom, rushing to the toilet because your gut, your gastrointestinal system,
Not
your
able to
intestine
absorb it.
was not prepared. Was not prepared. So it will be just like a hollow tube that
Yeah.
it will just pass everything. Or for some who will break it worst way with an ice cream, a donut, or a high glycemic index food, they thought that they will do themselves better because they will replenish the glucose, but
Yes.
actually they will come into a state of severe hypoglycemia, not because of the glucose that they took, but because of the insulin response of the glucose that they took. So the
So
moment they
the
take in,
insulin spike. Yeah.
yeah, the insulin spike, it's so high because you've been insulin sensitive
Yes.
for the longest time. We were insulin resistant, but during fasting you replenish your insulin sensitivity, that any form of sugar, especially simple sugars, can spike it up, and then it can remove all the sugars more than what you took, and it can lead to hypoglycemia. For our other friends who are Muslims, they know that there are a lot of those who, whenever it's the Ramadan season, that really got that they faint, that they fell
Yeah.
down, lost of consciousness, because they prepare a feast after each day of fasting, and sometimes others cannot take it. That's why it has that as result. And for others, it can, for those for longer fast, like 7 days, 10 days, yes, for those who are new to it. Others really do it even for weeks. Well, because that's what they say. Normally, an average person can have a fat store that can last us up to 6 weeks of fasting.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So that if you do that, you can have a refeeding syndrome. Refeeding
Yes.
syndrome,
Everything. Yeah.
the moment you eat, all the nutrients that is in your blood vessels will be absorbed by your cells, and it will lead to a severe state of low sodium, low potassium, low electrolytes, low glucose, low everything, because they will rush inside the cells, and you are risking yourself as worse as coma. But if you do intermittent fasting daily, it's nothing that you will be scared of. It's very, very far from that. It's usually noted on weeks long of fasting. So I just need to mention it so that you'll know that it is something that we have to consider if ever you want to delve deeper in this lifestyle.
Yeah. So I have I I don't know how I call this because I got friends who do intermittent fasting, but they don't feed themselves slowly when they
Yes,
yeah they just jump straight into the
eating.
main meal. Yeah.
Yes.
So uh would that what are they destroying what they've done, or is it still would it still be okay when we're talking about just maybe weight management? Would it be still okay if it's just weight management or what?
It will be up to the person.
Yeah,
So
what the goal is.
what we usually say is that we are pro IF, we are
Yeah,
pro natural wellness, but we
yeah,
are also pro choice. So it's
yeah,
their choice. So
yeah,
if they notice, if they want to do that, and I myself also do that, especially
yeah,
if I'm too excited with the food that I prepare myself,
yeah.
you will notice that whatever loss you've made when it comes to weight loss, you will easily regain with that kind of eating, because it will not actually be fat loss during the first stages of fasting. Most of it is water loss.
Water loss. Yeah.
Water loss. But of course, part of it is fat loss. However, if you eat directly like a feast immediately after without properly breaking it, you are gaining that water loss, but not the fat loss.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Fat loss will take a lot of fat buildup will take a lot of time, but water retention will be in an instant, especially if you are eating high carbohydrate diet. high carbohydrate rich food. But the thing about weight loss, who cares if it's fat or water weight?
I know. Yeah.
what
The-
you see, what you see in the scale, and
yes.
how bloated you feel, and what you
Yeah.
can really see in the mirror. You don't care if it's water or fats. It's just
Mhm.
the same. So it's up to you. But at least now you know. And if
Yeah.
you want to maximize, like for example, if you're preparing for an event like a beach party or your wedding,
Yeah.
so you'll know what to do if you don't want to retain those extra water. And it's what they say that water retention is actually the mildest form of refeeding syndrome.
Ah,
That's
okay.
actually part of the
Mm.
refeeding syndrome. So you're not breaking the fast properly.
Right.
So that's just one of the things that new beginners can think on.
Because my friend Norjay, going back to him, he was telling me I'm at that certain weight the moment I'm plateaued and all that. So I told him, uh, you have to consider about the water weight.
Yes.
Yes, and you have to consider because you're doing high intensity workouts as well. So that can be your muscle weight as well on top of it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah,
You really covered it. That's actually one chapter in the book on weight loss plateaus. So it's true that since muscles are heavier than fats,
yeah,
the more you lose fats, especially if you're exercising, doing some physical activity, your muscles could be bulking up. But actually, the person can know. You cannot lie to yourself.
yeah,
You'll know if it's really muscles or
yeah,
really not muscles.
yeah,
And muscles take years to form.
hmm,
Okay. It
yeah.
doesn't occur overnight or in weeks alone.
No,
If
true.
ever you will have some muscle bulk, it is still water, but this time inside the muscles. So
Yes.
for those actually who feel like they lost some muscles with a fasting, extended fasting, or some even dry fasting,
Hmm.
it's not actually the real muscles. It's just the water in the muscle because the muscle also retain water. So with weight loss plateaus, you can, as what you said, you can check first if it's really plateauing. But other times, weight is not the best gauge of health or improvement
No.
or benefits. You
Yeah.
can have a other better gauge like waistline circumference. The best health is that your waistline should be half or less of your height. So if you are a 150 centimeter by height, your waistline should be less than 75 centimeters. So you can calculate your own. And for those who are still trying to lose weight, there is what we call honesty pants. So we always have that certain dress or clothes or pants
Yes. So
call
true.
as honesty pants, you'll know that even if people are saying you look the same or whatever, and what you see in the mirror sometimes also confuses you, especially certain mirrors can make you look wider or thinner, but we will always have that honesty pants. So you'll know if you are gaining and our gauge with our stomach because it's also the most significant kind of fats that we need to look into. It's the visceral fats. And it's
Yeah.
the one that's covering our internal organs. And it's the one that is highly correlated into cardiovascular health risk more than just your blood cholesterol levels.
Mhm.
So visceral fats is way more important to generate. For those who are obese but with no central obesity, like their tummy it's not that big, they're
Mhm.
actually a lot healthier than those what we call tofu, thin outside, fat inside. Those men who are very lean looking, very lean extremities, but with bulging stomach, bulging abdomens, they are more at risk than the big ones.
Nice. Yeah. When you said about honesty pants, I have a friend as well here, and she's a female. She's an ate. So I told her, "Oh, I think I'm putting on weight, PJs." I told her, uh, "Don't buy trousers. Keep that pants, and that would be
Yes,
your goal."
buttons.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that means you're putting weight. So you need to exercise, watch your diet, and try to keep that pants. If you really want to look like that, that would be your pants. Instead of buying bigger sizes,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
so
yes,
it's already a what I call the one. It's already telling you that you have to start doing something.
yes, yes. That's
Mhm.
also, even that one, sometimes I really regret. Sometimes we want to feel comfortable. I wear pants that are loose, but I realize whenever I wear those pants, I overeat during those days, so I'd rather keep my snug fitting pants so that you become more aware, you become more conscious, and eventually, with time, you no longer need to think. It will become a routine. It will become a lifestyle, a habit. It's just a matter of starting it. That you have to take things consciously. You have to like to remember things, but
Yeah,
eventually, if it becomes a lifestyle, you will just laugh looking at yourself a year or just a month back.
I know. Yeah. Again, everything falls down to your goal,
Yes.
and people need to think of it as a lifestyle rather than a fad
Yes.
diet. Yeah, intermittent fasting. When you talked about if you have a goal, then you really want to accomplish that goal. So when people think of a short-term goal, maybe it's still good to have a short-term goal
Yes.
as long as you think of it as a lifestyle change
Yeah.
rather than just that I want to have a beach body. Okay, that's fine to have a beach body, but
Mm,
after the beach body, what's gonna happen?
mm-mm.
Yeah, so you still have to continue that. Okay, do you really want to look good just for the beach, or
Yes.
do you want to look good all throughout
Yes.
your life, or do you want to feel better?
Yes.
So then,
That's actually the reason. That's actually the reason why I published the first book on weight. Because as shallow as it may seem, but actually a lot of us are first concerned of how we look.
yes,
And it's okay.
that's fine.
But as the moment you start this lifestyle, you will realize that the looks are just the intro part.
That's
It's
it.
just for you to get into this way of life. But getting inside, once you get inside, you know that you could do so much more. Giving priority to your health, to your person, to your overall well-being, and then the physical aspect is just becoming a bonus. And yes,
True,
the
yeah.
commitment, yeah,
The
the
bonus.
short project may just be just the motivation
Yes.
as a start, but
Mhm.
what you need for you to sustain it is something more, and it's something that you will just realize along the way. So it's really good that we are discussing this, and I hope a lot of our listeners will be able to get inspired. If they don't believe any of us, both of us, they can look into the internet and they can find more credible
More
people.
risk. Yes, it will be.
Yes, if they wish to do so.
Doc, thank you very much. I'm going
Yeah,
to give the floor to you just for final words for those people who wants to get into it and some advice for our viewers and listeners because we've got this platform as well on audio podcast. So it's
podcast.
still
Yeah.
yeah, it's still coming out on Spotify and on Anchor FM and all that platform. So for all those listeners, I'll give the floor to Dr. Grace Rojo to give us some final words regarding intermittent fasting. Okay, Doc.
Okay. Sir PJ, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be able to share whatever I know. So, for those of you who are wondering what intermittent fasting is, or have been unsatisfied with the lifestyle that we chose, we've been following all the recommendations, all the dietary intake, all the standard eating patterns, but you feel like you need to improve something, you can look into intermittent fasting as a lifestyle, and you can see for yourself. We are recommending this, not just a, what PJ said, not just a fad, not just a crash diet, not something that is just a one time thing. We are recommending this because it's something that is sustainable, something that is natural, and something actually that is very much instinctive for us as humans. So it is actually appetite correction. It is going back to our basic, going back to our roots, and removing ourselves from the culture, from the tradition, from the norm that we were raised, but actually not natural for our biology, for our DNA as humans. We are more used to fasting for not eating less as compared to eating more. The the habit of eating more, that is already 3 times a day, with snacks, with midnight snacks, with very early breakfast. Those things are actually the one that's been causing all the troubles, all the medical problems in our body. So I don't want to take it any longer. If you wish to know more, you can follow my page on Facebook or YouTube channel, Dr. Josephine Grace Chua Rojo. For those who want to start to ease in with just improving their eating first because they cannot do fasting yet, you can do join our Facebook group that is Life Without Rice. And for those who wish to start fasting, you can also join Low Carb Fasting and Feasting Community. And for those who want to empower themselves more, read books, read as many watch as many videos as you want whenever about benefits of fasting, or you can also try to grab a copy of my book. It's available in Amazon worldwide. It's Perfect at Last book series, Perfect at Last Weight, Health and Wellness. So that's book 1, 2 and 3. Or you can also search my name in Amazon as the author, and you can see the links of the books there. So that would be all for now. Thank you very much. So as what I always say, you can fast as you can, fast as long as you can. And when you do eat, you do stay low carb so that you will be safe. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grace. I really enjoyed this podcast we did here. And hopefully, to all our listeners, we've given you some light bulb moment to get into intermittent fasting. That's what Dr. Grace Raw says. Ease yourself into it slowly and then find your groove. And then if you really want to go more than 12 hours, 13, 14, 16, and so on, it's all up to you. Have a good mindset, be healthy, try to have a good goal and make it achievable. Again, it's a lifestyle change. It's not a crash diet. It's it's for your own good, basically. Yes. Again, thank you very much to all our listeners, our watchers, the informers. This is PJ with Dr. Grace Rojo. We're signing out. Thank you very much.